I'm out here at the Crabtree Lake County Park in Wake County, North Carolina, in the city of Raleigh. I've scrambled up the walls of the Spillway here to these rocks here to check out if there's anything interesting in them. First thing I'm immediately noticing is that they are crystalline in nature. They have a foliation to them and a decent bit of mica, which tells me that they're metamorphic in nature. I think I've noticed here too is a pretty consistent 2 fracture sets. I'll have to find more. There's another one right there. So there's a few fracture sets running through these. The minerals, it's very, very metamorphic texture. I'm thinking mica, quartz, probably some feldspar in there, probably granitic in composition, owing to the light color, abundant muscovite mica, and just generally in this area, you see a lot of granitic rocks that have been deformed by tectonics more than anything else. Keep looking though, see if we can find anything interesting. So the rocks listed here are metamorphosed granites. Few plutons create them, generally consistent with the geology, the broader geology of the area, which is kind of a muddy mix of granites and gneisses and schists. There's a few amphibolite bodies, and then there's a couple of gabbros running up and down the area. There's some quartz veins there running in those. This outcrop is probably cut to make the spillway for the reservoir there, just beyond that tree line. This was all probably cut and quarried to form up the dam. That's depression area, spillway / quarry. In many cases, it'll be a dual purpose situation there. So, yep. Here's a closer look at those quartz veins here, and I don't know if I'd call them veins as much as I'd call them quartz-rich areas. Because there's not a whole lot of solid quartz in them as much as there is a lot of, what's the word? Quartz, but they don't really have a vein texture. They run with the rock, so they're concordant. I think they're just areas with more quartz and then therefore just more resistant to erosion than some of this, what's mostly just micaceous minerals in these lower spots here. So, interesting weathering pattern there. I think that would probably make this more similar to a gneiss at that point. Still granitic in composition though, so a lot of quartz in that. So in many cases when you have a quarry, any sort of quarried stone, even if it's grown over, the best way to tell is really with the stair-stepping pattern. Anytime you have rocks that have been cut out or major cuts into rock formations, there's some landslide mitigation reasons why this is done. It prevents rock falls and stress from building up on the rock without having to create a giant slope gradient. It's the most efficient way to prevent rock falls while also not cutting out everything in a very gentle slope. But yeah, it's a really good sign, this sort of stair-step pattern that I'm standing on top of. Very good sign that you're in an area that has been cut away for one reason or another, where large rocks have been cut away at least. So puzzlingly enough, a lot of this does seem to have been moved from the areas that have metamorphosed gabbro and diorite, or gabbro and basalt. Your biggest indicator for that is going to be this green kind of fractured look, which kind of indicates that you've had some hydrothermal alteration. This is very dark rock, especially with these little light colored spots on it, is very indicative of a gabbro or just generally a mafic igneous rock. And then these epidote mineralization veins come in, they fracture the whole rock apart during hydrothermal alteration, which is why it's a metamorphosed gabbro, not a regular one. But I don't know the origins on these. That's a quartz vein right there. So, in certain parts of this little cutaway here, there are places where the grass that was probably deliberately planted. Didn't do such a great job covering over the rock, so there's remnants, pieces all over the place. Over here, give you a scale of just how intense the blasting was. There's a blast hole. They dig these into the rock, and they will throw explosives down them and try to break up the rock along its fractures. Hey, blue heron. Nope. Critical. But yeah, anyway, those blast holes are a really good indication they had some intense quarrying going on here. Just kind of the surface of the rock here as they made this spillway and used the material for the construction of the reservoir. Big old quartz vein right on the floor of this spillway here. This right here is probably a fairly large quartz vein that ran through the host rock of what's probably a metamorphosed granite to varying degrees of metamorphism. So, a clear quartz that's probably hydrothermal in origin. No special colors to it or anything. And I haven't even really seen any signs of pockets, really. Now over there, the rocks are very granitic, but for whatever reason, and I guess this means that there's contact, or maybe just this is incidental. For one reason or another, though, this area is very schistose. Has very schistose. It's outcropping. This is part of the cutaway here. Mostly mica. Probably, if I had to guess, probably mostly muscovite in nature. But just a very different texture from the rocks we see over there. So this is the only section of this outcrop where I found anything remotely of interest. So this texture you're seeing here, this like streaking texture, that is caused by accessory minerals. I'm thinking it's tourmaline. I could be wrong. It could be starlight. Either way, really the only place where I found solid looking samples of anything other than just kind of homogeneous rock forming minerals. So I'll take it. It's better than nothing. So in some of the spillway material, I've found some granites, probably from the Crabtree quarry near the airport, and in some cases we're seeing decent tourmaline. It's a black gemstone mineral, referred to as scroll sometimes. Isolated to the quartz veins, probably pegmatitic in origin. Nothing to go crazy over, but I've seen some decent ones. So of all the things I found today, this is probably the coolest one. This is a VUG, V-U-G, which describes a pocket in the rock, like a hard rock in particular. All right, different from a geode, because a geode would be an isolated one, like a little circular sphere. So VUG of some sulfide minerals, some quartz. Right there, you see it? Right there, a little crystal quartz. There were probably more when this first fractured. Some hexagonal muscovite crystals, and then a little bit of pyrite, if we can make it out, all wedged in this. So there's right there. Brassy yellow sulfide mineral, and that's probably what's contributing this entire rock turning a dusky yellow reddish color. Probably the oxidation of the pyrite there is causing that. That's not uncommon to see in granites, and they can happen anywhere granite, although certain granites have more and certain granites have less. For example, the Gardner Quarry in Harnett County has a huge amount of these little vugs, whereas apparently the Crabtree Quarry has almost none. So, neat. Here's an example of some quartz veins cutting through, hydrothermal in nature, most likely. This is probably from the Crabtree Quarry. And you can see how they've kind of smashed into the rock under high pressure. So it almost created this shattered appearance. And that's kind of how they do it in the hydrothermal quartz veins. When the fluids are running through, and they kind of shatter up the rock like that.